How do you train so that you can actually build muscle? In today's episode, you're going to learn the exact principles to follow if you're looking to build muscle. My current goal, I'm in week 2 of 10 weeks, at the time of this recording at least, is to put on 3 to 8 pounds of muscle mass over a 10-week period. And today I'm going to break down the science of building muscle from a training perspective, and next week I'll do it from a nutrition perspective. After this 2-part series, you're going to know exactly how to train and what to eat and how much to eat in order to build muscle. All right, you guys, today, super excited to talk about how to build muscle, the specifics of training on how to build muscle. This is going to be a 2-part series on hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is literally the ability to build muscle, or the adaptation of building muscle. And a lot of you guys know, if you follow me on Instagram. If you don't, go follow me at carrier_bestyou. But I am currently, at the time of this recording, in week 2 of my 10-week goal of putting on 3 to 8 pounds of muscle mass over the next 10 weeks. You guys know I love challenging myself with different goals, and I'm coming off of a half marathon goal where I just PR'd down at a 30A half marathon, and I averaged a 6-minute and 12-second per mile pace for 13.1 miles, and I feel great about it. And now I'm kind of flipping the script a little bit. Instead of seeing how fast I can run, I'm seeing if I can put on some muscle mass. And I'm really excited because I feel like a lot of my goal over my life has been to put on muscle mass, especially when I was growing up and in high school and in college and stuff like that. Ever since, I haven't really specifically gone at it at a super scientific, super analytical way like I'm doing right now. And so I'm really excited to talk about the analytical side, the science side of how to build muscle this week from a training perspective, and next week from a nutrition perspective. You guys are going to be able to learn like the exact protocols, the exact things that I'm following in order to make this happen. So before we get into the exact exercises that you should do, the number of sets, the number of reps, and things like that, let's first answer the questions of what is hypertrophy and why it's important to do hypertrophy training. So to start, what is hypertrophy? Hypertrophy is the adaptation that our body undergoes in response to certain things being done. And that adaptation itself means the size of your muscle tissues getting bigger. And what we're actually referring to here, just to get it real quick sciencey on you, are the 2 things called actin and myosin. Actin and myosin are the contractile units in your cells that are actually getting bigger. And so within our cell, to give you again a little bit further explanation about this, within our cell wants to maintain a certain amount of space between these contractile units of actin and myosin. So to kind of give you an analogy, if you think about the size of a square room, okay, like the size of a square room is a fixed size. And let's think of 2 balloons that are in that room. And let's say those 2 balloons are starting to get bigger and bigger. Well, if we're in a fixed room, then the space between those 2 balloons are going to get smaller and smaller. Now let's transition that. Instead of a square room, we're talking about the size of your cell, and the muscle cells in particular. If those 2 balloons of actin and myosin are getting bigger and bigger, the cell is not a fixed size. The cell is fluid. The cell actually expands so that you can maintain the same amount of space between the actin and myosin. So as those balloons get bigger, instead of being in a fixed space, that cell actually gets bigger. And so because that cell gets bigger, that is when your muscles are actually getting bigger. So the cell responds by growing in diameter to restore proper space between actin and myosin. So that is what is hypertrophy from a scientific perspective. Now, why do hypertrophy training? Why do training for the sake of building muscle? Well, it's not just for aesthetics. It's not just for looking a certain way, believe it or not. Of course, all of us do hypertrophy training for a little bit of vanity, right? Like, I want to look bigger. I want to look stronger at the end of this. But we train in general for like 3 different reasons, not just hypertrophy training, but we do just training in general, exercise in general for 3 different reasons, right? So we can look good, we can feel good, and we can play good. So we can look the way we want to look, feel the way we want to feel, and play the way we want to play, and obviously whatever that means for you. And generally, a lot of us want to look better, and to, quote, look better, we would probably benefit from adding some muscle mass on us. But the benefits are a lot more numerous than that. Our muscle assists in a number of different health-related systems. Most muscle helps to improve, or a lot of our muscle helps to improve our immune system function. It improves our glucose regulation, aka our blood sugar regulation, which is super important, and it helps to build new red blood cells as well. There are also studies showing that load-bearing exercises, aka strength training and hypertrophy training, releases something that's called osteocalcin. Osteocalcin acts of kind of like a hormone that travels to the brain and can actually enhance your memory systems in the brain by enhancing your neuron health. Now, I heard about that specifically from a study by a guy named Dr. Andy Galpin, who's one of the top exercise physiologists in the world. And lastly, our bones get stronger through resistance training. You can improve your bone mineral density regardless of how old you are by doing resistance training. However, it is shown in science that people have talked about that the biggest chance to increase your bone mineral density through strength training is in your 20s and your early 30s. But again, there's so many different health-related improvements like blood sugar regulation, your immune system function, your brain health, and your bone health, rather than simply looking a particular way. Now, how do we induce hypertrophy? How do we get the adaptation of building muscle? So now that you know what it is and why you should do it, let's talk about how we can actually get that. So to induce hypertrophy, it requires proper training and nutrition. Like I said, we'll talk about nutrition next week. I'll talk a little bit about sleep as well. But to start off with hypertrophic training, there's 6 different keys that I'm going to be talking about today to make sure that your training plan is optimized for muscle growth. And these are the things that I am currently following in my plan. So a real quick 6-point bullet list that I'm going to dive into individually. Number 1 is how to warm up. 2, what exercises to choose from. Number 3, how many sets should you do? Number 4, how many reps should you do? Number 5, how should you be performing those reps? And number 6 is progressive overload. So let's start with how to warm up. Now, I'm going to dive in relatively deep on how to warm up, but this is still not something that is super, super important to follow super, super specifically. But you can do a general warm up like walking on a treadmill or jogging on a treadmill or going onto elliptical. But from that perspective, there's no real evidence that it's going to increase your performance or improve your performance during your workout. So when it comes to warming up, I like to personally think about what are the purposes of my warm up, or what is the reason why I'm doing a warm up. And for me, the warm-up should help us feel ready for a workout. It should help us to feel more energized and ready to perform. Part of that is to help our joints feel loose and ready to participate and lubricated and ready to participate in full range of motion of the exercises that you're actually going to be doing that day. So for example, if I'm doing a lower body exercise and I've got squats in there, then I need my ankles to be loose so that I can get full range of motion in my squats. Also, part of that is increasing our core internal body temperature to increase the body temperature of our body. And part of that is going to be activation of the muscle that we're actually getting ready to work. So we want to increase our internal body temperature, and we also want to activate the muscles that we're going to be training during that workout. So that said, for me personally, I do a lot of my training in the morning. So sometimes I need to start slow with my warm up and get my joints loose and get myself just like feeling awake and feeling alert. If I am warming up for a workout after having been awake for a few hours, maybe my warm up won't be as long or won't be as extensive. But before going into my very first exercise, I may do 1 to 3 warm-up sets depending on how I'm feeling, depending on which exercise I'm doing and the amount of load that I'm going to be doing during my working sets. So for example, if it's something like a dumbbell bench press, I might just do 1 warm-up set of 8 to 10 reps using my 20 rep max, and then I might jump right in after that. I actually, at this today, during my upper body workout, I did incline bench press. And as my very first exercise, I did 2 warm-up sets. I did a set of 12 with something pretty light, and then a set of 4 with something that was a little bit closer to what I was going to be doing. But to me, it's a little bit less important as long as you feel really, really good going into that. Now, if I'm doing something like a barbell back squat, something where I'm going to be going really heavy, then I might do 2 to 3 warm-up sets. And this warm-up could be like 12 reps at your 30 rep max, so a nice light weight, and then rest for a couple minutes. And then 8 reps at your 20 rep max, then rest for a couple of minutes. And then 2 to 4 reps at a weight that's about 5 to 20 pounds less than what your working set weight would be. So again, kind of 3 warm-up sets. This is kind of actually a scheme that they use at Renaissance Periodization, one of the apps or one of the training programs that I'm going to be really following along closely with. This is what they recommend for some of their warm-ups as well. So 3 warm-up sets, a 12 rep set, an 8 rep set, and then 2 to 4 reps of a weight that's closer to what your beginning weight is going to be. So again, that kind of warm-up is not necessarily required. It's whatever works best for you, but whatever you think is going to allow you to perform is the best route. There's not really I don't think a wrong warm-up, the wrong warm-up would be the warm-up makes you too fatigued going into the workout, and it's not specific to the workout that you're actually doing, and the warm-up is sloppy, not using proper technique. Okay, that's how to warm up. Let's dive into what exercises to choose. And when it comes to which exercises to choose, you actually have a lot of wiggle room. The first thing to keep in mind is that to grow muscle, the most important part is consistency. Like, it's adhering to your plan consistently over time. Now, that said, you want to choose exercises that you actually enjoy, that you don't dread doing, because if you dread doing particular exercises in your workout plan, that might impact your consistency. And you also want to make sure that you are choosing exercises that don't provide you a whole lot of joint pain. Because again, first off, you're probably not creating a lot of stimulus in the muscle. Second off, if you're having a lot of joint pain, you're going to dislike the exercise, therefore making you maybe lose consistency. Another thing you want to be wary of is you want to choose exercises where you can actually feel the burn in the muscle that you're trying to work. You can actually feel the pump. You can actually feel the stimulus of that muscle being worked. For example, like for me, doing a dumbbell chest fly, if I'm lying down on a bench doing a chest fly, I get a pretty good pump in my chest, I do. But every once in a while, it can sometimes bother my shoulders a little bit if I do them a lot. So for me, if I choose something like a machine pec deck fly, where I'm sitting down on a seat and then my back is against a bench and I'm using the machine chest fly, I feel a whole lot more stimulus and pump in my chest with almost basically zero strain on my shoulders at all. So I really like that exercise for me over maybe a dumbbell chest fly. But some of you might be the other way around. That's why choosing which exercises that you do for your plan is highly personal to you and how you feel about these exercises. So again, you also want to choose exercises that you feel like you can progress on slowly. Like if you know there's an exercise that just for whatever reason, over time you are never getting stronger at, and you just haven't gotten stronger at, that might not be a great exercise for you to choose from. But if you know that there's an exercise that if you really dedicate some time to consistently over time that you can improve on, that might be a really good exercise for you. Last thing with regards to exercise selection is a common mistake is people think they need to get fancy with their exercises. There are exercises like a dumbbell bench press, like a bicep curl, like a skull crusher that are tried and true for a reason, because they work. You don't need to get fancy with your exercises. You just need to do the right exercises with the right weight for the right number of reps consistently over time, applying progressive overload. So let's dive in. How many sets should you actually be doing? So to induce hypertrophy, appropriate volume is really key. Appropriate volume is going to be based on your training experience, both like your total training experience and your recent training experience. Kind of a good baseline with regards to the number of sets that you should be doing is to do 10 working sets per week of a muscle group that you wish to grow. Now, if you're more experienced, then you should probably increase that to more like 15 to 20 working sets per week with the particular muscle groups that you're looking to grow. So again, let's say, for example, you're looking to grow your chest muscles. Then you want to do, if you do a chest day, and that's your only chest day of the week, you want to do at least 10 sets of chest exercises of working sets. If you're doing splitting up your chest exercises into 2 different days, maybe you do 6 sets on one day and 6 sets on another, giving you 12 total sets across the week. So that's how many sets you should do. Let's dive into how many reps you should do. So of those 10 to maybe 20 working sets of the muscle group that you're looking to grow, you want to do anywhere from 5 to 30 reps per set. There are a lot of different rep schemes that can get you within that 5 to 30 rep range. There's straight sets, there's drop sets, there's cluster sets, there's giant sets, and more. But as long as you're somewhere between 5 to 30 reps per set, then you're going to be pretty darn good to go with regards to building muscle. Now, it's really important to perform those reps appropriately. So the next part is, how do we perform those reps? So there's 3 things that you want to consider when considering how to perform those 5 to 30 reps. Number 1 is they need to be close to failure. Remember, these aren't warm-up sets. These 10 to 20 sets are working sets, and the 5 to 30 reps are exactly that. They're part of your working set. So you can think of working sets, for the sake of this conversation and for the sake of simplicity, as sets that are anywhere 1 to 3 reps short of failure, or they're done with 1 to 3 reps in reserve. I actually heard Renaissance Periodization talking about it this way. If a gun was put to your head and you were told to do as many possible reps with that weight as possible, what's 1 to 3 reps short of that? That's what reps in reserve really means. And a lot of people have no idea how to train with reps in reserve because they've never really pushed themselves to failure. So getting close to failure sometimes can be hard, and the more training experience you get, the more this reps in reserve concept will make sense to you and the better you'll be able to apply it. So how to perform the reps. Number one is close to failure, 1 to 3 reps in reserve. Number two is getting a good stretch. There's a lot of studies that show that getting a good stretch in the muscle is more optimal for muscle growth, meaning that going all the way down at a dumbbell bench press is much better for muscle growth than just going halfway down, because of the good stretch that the chest muscles are going to get all the way at the bottom. So be sure to pick exercises that you can get full range of motion and minimal joint pain so that you can get that good stretch in the muscle group. So close to failure, get a good stretch. Number 3 is tempo. Now, the exact tempo that you use during hypertrophy training isn't super important. It's my understanding that the science shows that you could basically use whatever tempo you want to get hypertrophy. However, generally speaking, being under control during the eccentric phase of the exercise, during the going down portion of the exercise, the negative portion of the exercise, it's really good for ensuring that you feel the burn in the correct muscle group that you're looking to work, and it's good for minimizing your risk of injury. A lot of people will sometimes maybe change up their tempo for certain exercises. That's not necessarily an important factor when it comes to the science of growing muscle, but it might be an important factor for keeping you interested and keeping you engaged and keeping things new. And so if that's how you keep things new and allows you to stay consistent, go for it. But you want to make sure that you do it in a strategic manner so that you can still apply progressive overload. And that transitions me right into the last part, applying progressive overload. This is maybe the most important thing to discuss when it comes to hypertrophy training. It's a fancy term that simply means to challenge yourself more from week to week. When applying progressive overload most effectively, you want to ensure that it's a small, gradual increase. It's not like I'm going to add 20 pounds from one week to the next. I'm going to add another 10 working sets or another 10 reps on each set. It's like, no, that increase should be more of like 3 to 5% in weight from week to week, or maybe a 5% increase in volume from week to week. So this means you have 2 options. Let's make it as simple as possible. Let's say you're doing dumbbell bench press and during this week, you did 3 working sets with 50-pound dumbbells, and you did 8, 7, and 6 reps on those sets. Option 1 would be to increase the weight that you use. So next week, you go to 55 pounds, and you would do 3 working sets with 55 pounds at somewhere around the same number of reps. Option 2 would be to increase the reps that you did. So if this week you did 3 sets with 50 pounds at 8, 7, and 6, next week, you would do 50 pounds again, maybe at 9, 8, and 7, or at 8, 8, and 7. You would find a way to increase the number of reps by 1 rep on one of the sets or multiple of the sets, if possible, over time. Remember, if you're consistently changing up the exercises that you choose from week to week, then it can be really hard to apply progressive overload. So it's recommended that the exercises that you do from week to week are basically the same so that you know how to increase your reps and you know how to increase your sets, and you want to make sure those exercises are in the right order, because if you're changing up the order all the time, then you might do dumbbell bench press one week as your first exercise and then as your third exercise the next week, and then you're going to be a little bit tired. The muscles already are fatigued and you're not going to be able to perform the same, and you're not comparing apples to apples, you're comparing apples to oranges. So exercises staying the same and the order in which you do them staying the same is the easiest way and most effective way to apply progressive overload. So y'all, growing muscle is not easy. The more of a beginner you are, the easier it's going to be, but the more advanced you are, the more work you're going to need to put in and the more precise you'll need to be with your training and nutrition. That's why with me on this particular goal, I'm somewhat advanced, obviously, in my training expertise and experience. And so I need to make sure that I'm dialed in and I'm following these things on a regular basis, as well as following my nutrition plan that I'm going to be talking about during next week's episode. So make sure you tune in for next week on the exact nutrition principles that you need to make sure you're following in order to build muscle. But a quick summary of the key training principles to induce hypertrophy are the following. Again, how to warm up. Make sure you're preparing your body to perform well during your upcoming workout. Number 2, what exercises do you choose? You choose exercises that you're going to enjoy, that you'll stay consistent with, that provide you with the proper pump or the burn in the muscle group that you're desiring to grow, and provide you with none or minimal joint pain. Number 3, how many sets do you do? You want to do at least 10 working sets of that muscle group that you're looking to grow per week, or upwards of 15 to maybe 20 working sets per that week for more advanced individuals. Number 4, how many reps should you do? Anywhere from 5 to 30 reps for each of those 10 to 20 working sets. Remember, working sets, not warm-up sets. Number 5, how do you perform those reps? Make sure those reps are 3 things. Number 1, they're close to failure, 1 to 3 reps in reserve. Number 2, you get full range of motion. You get a good stretch in that muscle group that you're looking to grow. And number 3, you're using a controlled tempo. And then 6th and finally, applying progressive overload. You want to challenge yourself little by little from week to week by maybe adding 5 more pounds, probably not more than 5 pounds, 5 more pounds to your weight, or by adding 1 rep on 1 or multiple of your working sets. If you can apply these principles, you're going to greatly increase your chances of growing muscle. But again, nutrition is huge. Nutrition is absolutely huge. And that's what I'm almost most excited about for my current plan, because I've lifted a lot, but never have I super specifically, scientifically, and analytically gone about my nutrition plan by really eating so I can bulk up, really eating so I can build some muscle mass. So I'm really excited to talk about that with you guys next week. Also, if you have a goal to either build muscle or maybe lose fat or look more toned, then you need to join us in the next 10-week transformation starting April 22nd to June 27th. Registration is officially open. If you're in Nashville, you can join us 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or 10 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. If you're somewhere else from Nashville and you work out in your home, or you go to the gym, or you're traveling a lot and you work out in hotel rooms a lot, the virtual 10-week transformation is for you. You can sign up there as well, nickcarrier.com/10WT. Again, registration is open. We go from April 22nd to June 27th. This is your opportunity to look and feel like your best you, to make more progress than you've ever made in the past, because you're going to have me personally coaching you, personally texting you every single week so that you're staying on track, so that you're applying some of these principles so that you can approach whatever goal it is that you're approaching. Lose body fat, build muscle, run faster, run longer, whatever it is. I will coach you to get there. You can sign up today by going to nickcarrier.com/10WT. I hope that what you learned today was insightful. I hope it was educational. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope it allows you to get closer to your health and fitness goals. And ultimately, I hope it allows you to get closer and closer to your best you.